Hello, Podfam, and hello, Rachel. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Laura. I'm actually feeling quite spicy this evening, so I'm ready to go. How are you?
Excellent. I'm good. This is
You're
a
good?
good episode to be spicy on. Again, we've just been doing a lot of hard-hitting things right now with our abortion
Mm-hmm.
series. If you haven't listened to it yet, definitely go check it out. There are currently 2 episodes that we have released, and we have several more coming. They've
Mm-hmm.
been awesome, but we need to step away from that
Yep.
sometimes and just have something that's a little bit more fun, yet this one is kind of spicy.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, what are you drinking today?
I have a cinnamon spice herbal tea.
That sounds nice.
It's quite good. It's again one of my Tetley ones. I need to update the tea pantry with the teas that you helped me get because
Yes.
a lot of them have caffeine in it. And listeners, I've been going on a caffeine detox for about, I guess, like a month and a half now.
How's that working out for you?
It's actually been pretty good. I feel like my energy is coming back
Oh, good.
because I got into a weird stage with it where it stopped having the effect that it's supposed to have, and it would just make me more tired and kind of headachy and stuff. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll try to stop. I'll try to go off of it, and it was kind of inspired by Organic Olivia, who also has stopped caffeine recently, and yeah, it's been good. For the first like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I thought I was gonna die. Just energy wise, I felt very tired. But this week, I really feel like it coming back to a point where I had so much energy in my body today that I was just like, this is making me a little anxious.
Well, that's kind of perfect. I find I go through
Mm-hmm.
phases where my body is like, it's caffeine time, and then
Yep.
it's just like, no, no more caffeine. So it's kind of like a weird little switch that
Yeah.
I'll do.
I think that's what
I'm
happened to me because it's like, you know how they always say, like, when you go through caffeine withdrawal, people get migraines?
Yes,
I didn't have that at all. Like, my body was literally like, stop drinking this stuff. And I was like,
right.
okay.
Yeah, it's definitely fortunate when you don't have to go through the migraine and
Mm-hmm.
detox symptoms of coffee and
Mm-hmm.
caffeine withdrawal. I'm currently on a we need some coffee time
That's
right
fair.
now. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
valid. What kind of tea are you having, though? Does it
I'm
have
drinking a
caffeine?
coffee.
So your body really is going through a I need coffee and caffeine time.
Yes, I was drinking a pu'er tea earlier today, and then my boyfriend was going out and he brought me a coffee bag, just a small one, and
Nice.
it was good. So I'm having a coffee with cream.
Delicious.
And after we record, I'm going to a candlelight yoga session. So I think it'll
Lovely.
balance. I have hopes. I think I'll balance out.
Lovely.
Yeah.
It was a big horse show week for you last week. So I think
Yes.
no matter how much caffeine is in your body, you're going to sleep beautifully.
Oh my God. I'm like just finally coming out of horse show hangover. And if you know,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I'm a little out of sorts, but I am starting to feel better. I'm getting a little bit more back on my routine. So
Yep.
it's all good. It's all good. I'm here. I am
Nice.
here. We are back recording.
I missed
So,
you.
oh, I've missed you too.
Yeah. It feels like it's been a while. I'm
Yeah,
like,
even though, like, we
we're back.
literally recorded just over a week ago, but,
I know.
we're so used to recording all the time that,
It's in our
it was a
routine,
little
you
strange
know?
when we took a little break.
Yeah.
But anyway, shall we get into our topic today?
Yes, this is about to be very chaotic, everyone. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, I don't know where we're going with this. We're just
Neither
gonna
do I.
be here, we're along for the ride, we'll
Yep.
see what comes out.
Yep.
Um, don't know what this is gonna be called yet, but we kinda had an idea, and mainly it was just like we're finding that society is not enjoying things for what they are.
Yeah.
And we have a couple of different avenues. And I think we really took the, um, would you say, entertainment approach to this topic?
Yeah, I think mostly, at least in our discussions, we've been talking about movies and TV in particular because that's just been such a I think with like all the streamers, there's just so much chatter about these things. And then also celebrity culture, but mostly with music. That's kind of the venue that we've been playing around in our conversations.
Yeah, definitely. Like my top threes when I was thinking about this topic were like television, movies,
Mhm.
music.
Yeah.
We are just inundated with so much content
Mhm.
that we just can't, like, get enough of it. It's that dopamine
Yeah.
addiction that we're getting,
Mhm.
and we just are not taking time to enjoy it, and we're always just so critical of what is
Mhm.
coming out that I feel like we're just losing how much, like, joy we could actually take from something.
Yeah. And I really think that attitude is starting to seep its way into just regular life as the world gets more and more into, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing coming out? We're starting to forget to enjoy the now and just experience things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, it's starting in the entertainment world, but it's, like, flooding over to our own lives
Mhm.
where, we've worked hard for things, but we're not even taking time to be like, "Wow, look what I accomplished." It's just like,
Yeah.
"Okay, what's next? What's next? I'm
Yeah.
bored. I'm bored. Let's move on."
Like we're
Um,
already moving on to the next thing before the current thing is even finished, really.
exactly, exactly, and this is where we get this, like, need to want more things
Mhm.
when we really don't need it. It's
Yeah.
just like this overconsumption of things that don't really mean a lot to us.
And that we're probably going to forget about 1 month down the road because there is such an influx of content and media and information.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like a great place to start is with a movie series that has been coming out over
Yes.
the past couple of years. And people are gonna probably go like, "What? Why are you talking about this?" And,
Mhm.
it's the Fantastic Beast series. Now,
Yes.
you may or may not be a fan, but even if you aren't, it's just kind of the perfect example
Mhm.
of people being overly critical of something
Yep.
that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I agree because this was actually where this conversation really took hold with us because we saw the recent installment of Fantastic Beasts together and we both really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. We felt like the movie was well made and stuff. And, like, maybe there's some concepts in it that, didn't exist in the Harry Potter universe or something that felt kind of random. But it's just like, it's not Harry Potter, really. And I think where this conversation came from was because we both really enjoyed this movie, but all these people that we follow that do analyses of movies that we like were really going hard against it. They're like, well, this isn't canon, and like, what's that about and stuff.
Mhm.
And I feel like with movies and TV in particular, this rise of review and analysis culture, especially on YouTube,
Yeah.
has really caused this kind of culture of not enjoying things just for what it is to take hold. And I mean, I love the review channels, don't get me wrong. I spend a
Mhm.
lot of time on them, but we have to understand like their job is built around analyzing these movies or TV and seeing if it ties into canon and stuff, which is totally fair. But I've noticed that this overemphasis on, like, oh, well, there can't be any plot holes at all. Like, where did this concept come from? This wasn't introduced in the book that was written 25 years ago and such, has really affected the ability to just enjoy it for being a movie.
Yeah.
They're not actually talking about is it a good movie as just a standalone movie. It's, oh, this was a crappy piece of media because it doesn't seamlessly tie into everything in the universe that came before it.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and I am gonna do a little mention slash shout out to Super Carlin Brothers because they are
Love
a
them.
huge review channel, and don't get me wrong, I absolutely love their content, but
Mhm.
again, going back to where this whole conversation stemmed from, it was from their reviews that
Mhm.
they did, and they judged this series quite harshly, and I think
Yeah.
they did say, like, "No, we enjoy it, it's great, it's like, it's fine." Um and we have to remember that on social media, especially YouTube, it's the headlines of like, find out why this was a terrible movie.
Mhm.
That's gonna catch the views, right? Not the like, this was the best movie ever, you know?
Yeah.
Um, that's not gonna sell, right? You kinda
Mhm.
need that little bit of angst to bring in those viewers. So like we can't like blame them
Mhm.
for being a little harsh, but I agree with you. You know, there's this trend now of creating backstories
Yeah.
or exploring different time periods within a universe.
Mhm.
And when you're looking at something that, like Harry Potter, it was written in the 90s. It wasn't meant to withstand a
Mhm.
story that is from a different time period that is now being
Yeah.
told in our time period, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's not that like J.K. Rowling, who was the author of Harry Potter, had this plan to then come out with an additional series talking
Yeah.
about a different time period, right? So I feel like we're just being so harsh and being like, oh my God, there's so many loopholes. And yeah, some things were kind of like, oh, that's
That's
different. Like
odd.
that seems
Yeah.
like how did they know about that if that wasn't done till here? But we're just getting so stuck on
Mhm.
canon and canon being absolutely flawless.
Yeah.
And it can't. And I feel like it's ruining a lot of people's experience of a piece of
Mhm.
work that is actually a good story. Like
Yeah.
I, for one, like I have really enjoyed that series. And I feel like I'm a little bit more in the ignorant
Mhm.
camp, the ignorance is bliss,
Yeah.
because I'm very up to date on the Harry Potter movies and books and that kind of stuff, but like I didn't ever really overanalyze it. It was just kind of like, oh, there it is. Okay, good story. Oh, look, we're telling a new story. Cool. I didn't
Yeah.
overthink it that much, but there is this large group of people who, they know the ins and outs of every
Mhm.
backstory, and they're kind of picking apart. And so when that message kind of seeps into me as a viewer, I'm almost
Mhm.
like, oh, like, should I not be enjoying this series? It kind of
Yeah.
makes me question my own thoughts and feelings around something. And I know we're just talking about Fantastic Beasts series, but apply this to anything, okay? Like this is just an example that we're using. It really is just a template for anything. And I
Mhm.
feel like there are different series and just things in life that this can be applied to, that
For
we're
sure.
letting the over analyzed viewpoints of other people become our viewpoints. And this is where we need to step back and be like, no, what do I actually think of this?
For sure. And I want to give like a countering example here, and another shout out to a review channel, which is the Nerd Soup YouTube channel, but they also have a podcast, which is primarily how I listen to it.
Mhm. Oh, I love
And
nerd soup. Yeah.
yeah, we found it together when Game of Thrones was
Yes.
on. And like I religiously listened to it, and I've recently been getting into House of the Dragon. That's been coming out over the last few weeks. And the hosts have a really great jokey mood about it. Like they don't take any stuff that seriously. But let's look at an example like, House of the Dragon has George R. R. Martin working on the show, right?
Mhm.
He's pretty much securing that this story can be viewed as almost seamless canon. So they're really praising it for that. But even then, when it is really well made and there aren't a lot of plot holes and stuff, and the reviewers are like, this is awesome, there's still people that are like, but it's missed this minuscule little thing, so it's not good. And it's just like, can we just, especially with like Harry Potter and Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, like there's so much going on in those things. Like, could you imagine having to balance all that stuff in your brain to make it all work? It's really like we have this standard of perfection now that almost seems like inhuman. Because I don't know if I could write a seamlessly canon story. Could you?
No, and another series I'm thinking about is Star Wars. That is something
Mm-hmm.
that has explored multiple different time periods over the past 50 years. And now there's the new Obi-Wan Kenobi show, and I have not finished it yet, but
I
that
did
was
love that
another
show.
another piece of time that a story is being told about.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like from a creator's standpoint, it's almost as if there's so much criticism that it
Mm-hmm.
makes me wonder that some of them are gonna be like, "You know what? I'm not even gonna bother. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
bother." And then we wouldn't have any of these stories. There would be no additional Game of Thrones series. There would be no additional Star Wars, Harry Potter. And I feel like a lot of this stuff and why they explore these stories is, yes, that they were huge commercial successes, but it's fan service, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, it's just giving people who love something so much additional content. And
Hmm.
I don't know how to say this, but like, I think sometimes we just need to be grateful for that,
Yeah.
because so
I
many
100%
situations
agree.
and things that were loved are never heard from again, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I know we get reboots and that kind of stuff, but it is so nice that we do live in kind of a, how do I want to say this? Not a streaming world, but like a time where creators are happy to explore
Hmm.
additional plot lines.
Hmm.
And that's so great because in the past, once a story was done, that's
It's
it.
done.
It's done.
Yeah.
It's done. You don't get actors coming back. Um, if it got syndicated, then great, you'd get to watch it again. But there was so
Hmm.
much time where, like, once that episode aired, you never saw it again.
Yeah. I didn't think there was going to be an Obi-Wan Kenobi show after watching the prequels in the early 2000s, but they were like, this could be an interesting time period. Let's give it to them. There's still parts of this relationship that we want to explore, and I think that's great. But I have an interesting question for you, and I know you don't like watch these too heavily, but do you think the existence of these cinematic universes that was kind of started by Marvel, do you think that has had an impact on this? Because that's a company that, they sit down and they literally plot out everything years and years in advance, that it's almost the expectation that they've created, we've now applied to literally everything else when it wasn't supposed to be that.
Hmm. No, I think that's an interesting concept, and I'm coming from a position where I don't know anything about the Marvel universe. Like, I've never been into the real superhero genre. Um,
Mhm.
but yes, I do understand that this is it called a metaverse? I don't know what it's called.
Like, it's just
The Marvel
cinematic
universe?
universe.
Okay, cinematic
Cinematic
universe.
universe.
And yes, that is a great example of something that was thought out in advance with the plan of having this universe, and how in depth that is, I don't know. Um, and now,
I'm pretty sure apparently they have a guy that literally his job is to plot out the timelines.
oh, okay, so that's a perfect example then for my point, because that is now, like you said, the new standard, the new benchmark. And all of these old shows that were very popular and old content are now trying to fit onto that framework.
Mhm.
Yet it's never going to be perfect, because the original content was created at a time where that didn't happen. Like, it was just
It
like,
wasn't made for that.
no, it was linear, right? Like, they're like, hey,
Mhm.
here's this great story. It's this piece in time. We've told it, the end.
Yeah.
But now it's all being brought out from the past and being like, okay, how can we fit this on the framework of having all these additional plot lines? But
Mhm.
it's a story that was close ended. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's where this door for criticism is being opened, because these original stories were never meant to be carried on.
Exactly. I'm 100% in agreement with you there. And I think really what we need to do, and what I would encourage people to do, is to, instead of looking at it through the lens of like, well, how does this tie into everything else? Because it's kind of fun to do that because you create theories and stuff. And, there's a lot of theory channels out there, which are fantastic. I love them. But sometimes it's also okay to just look at what you're watching and be like, through its own merit, is this a good show or a good movie? As opposed
Hmm.
to, this doesn't tie in seamlessly to something that was released 10 years ago, so therefore I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like we're not, like, I don't know if we're not seeing the forest for the trees is a
Yes.
good
Yeah,
example, but I feel like that, you know what I'm saying when I say that. It's
I
like
do.
it's like we're not just like admiring that piece of pie, you know? We like are judging it by the whole pie.
Yes, exactly. Or like really just a small piece,
Yeah.
like this one thing doesn't fit. Throw
Mhm.
away the whole thing, right? Like,
Yeah, it's garbage,
yeah.
apparently.
Yeah, and that's where I'm finding now, like, I would sometimes, like, especially Game of Thrones was a good one,
Mhm.
where I'd watch the episode, I'd watch a review,
Yeah.
where now I'm kinda like, "You know what? I'm gonna finish the whole series,
Yeah.
and then maybe I'll watch reviews. Because by that point, I have formed my own opinion of something and I'm
Mhm.
very like strong in that opinion
Yeah.
that then I don't feel as influenced if I'm watching a different opinion and listening
Mhm.
to it. Where if I'm kind of doing that simultaneously, I find that really like taints my view. And
Yeah.
then as I start to watch something further, I'm like almost looking for
Mhm.
errors. And that really does take away from the enjoyment.
Yeah. Well, let's use an example and actually tie this back to Game of Thrones. I will say, season 8 was not a good season, but I remember at that time you and I were watching a review after every single episode. And I remember at the kind of first two episodes, I was like, oh, this is all right. But the reviews themselves got so negative episode to episode that I'm like, if I actually watched this again, like went back in time and didn't watch any of those, and I didn't actually have that much knowledge of Game of Thrones itself, would I have disliked it as much as I did if I had allowed my own opinions to form first before exposing myself to somebody else's?
Yes, I think that's a good point because when I think back to that last season, I actually remember enjoying most of the episodes. Like, yes, they had a
Mhm.
lot to tell.
Yeah.
Um, and I granted, I knew that they had a lot to tell
They needed
because
3
I
more
was
seasons.
watching reviews. You
Yeah,
know, like you could definitely tell from even a viewer who didn't know that much about it, it was rushed that last season.
for sure.
And really, with the exception of the very last episode, um, I enjoyed it.
Mhm.
Like, I was just like, "Yep, okay, good. Got the most of the story out."
Mhm.
Granted, I think the last episode was a huge letdown no matter
That
what
was
no matter
trash.
what
I'm
you knew.
sorry.
And here we are getting critical. Oops.
I'm s
Um,
We've had enough time to think about that episode through our own heart.
yes.
That was not it.
Yeah, yeah, and even the creators were like, "Oops, sorry, dropped the ball on that
Mhm.
one."
Yeah.
Um, so we're gonna leave that exception out. But I
Mhm.
kinda wanna look at some fun ways that we have kinda had the opportunity to see a timeline, and I think the Pixar theory.
Oh my god, I love the Pixar Theory.
Yes, if you know nothing about the Pixar theory, definitely go to Super Carlin Brothers channel. They have videos and videos of how every Pixar movie fits in on the timeline,
Mhm.
and that is something I enjoy the
Yes.
analysis on because it doesn't affect the quality of a film.
Mhm.
It's more just a cool way of like, hey, what are the links between all of these movies?
Yeah.
So that's something I am still here for.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's like they're not, I mean, really, like, the Pixar Theory is just it's a theory. No
Yeah,
one I don't think anyone's ever really confirmed it, but it's one of those things where it's been created because it's fun, not because it's an expectation of the creators.
exactly. It's more just like a little bit of like, if you know situation.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then it's fun to watch these movies and be like, "Ooh, it fits in right here," or like,
Mhm.
"That could be," but it doesn't actually take away from a movie that is a standalone, like, can hold its own. It doesn't have to be related to anything else.
Yeah, and I mean, you can watch one Pixar movie and 3 more can come out afterwards, and then a 4th one comes out. You don't have to watch those ones in the middle, like, you're not missing anything.
No. No,
So,
absolutely not. So it's kind of like a nice way that,
mhm,
canon does not apply.
yes.
Alright. Let's move into music.
Oh my god. No one
I
attack
don't know
us,
if this topic
please.
is now gonna change. I feel like this whole episode is just in, like, different chunks of
I
things that
know.
we're bitching about.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes this is what we need, okay? We have a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
No one attack us, please.
No, we're
We're
just getting some
just
thoughts off our chest about a few
yeah,
things. So,
this is
let's move
our
into
show.
music, alright? And if if you listen to us, it's gonna be about Taylor Swift. Alright?
Yes, I have a
Alright.
lot to say.
Yes. Yes. Now, we wanted to use Taylor Swift, and it's because she's the most perfect example.
Mhm.
This is a creator who has released so much content for us to
So
love and enjoy. And we've now been blessed again of getting all the same content with additional
Again.
vault tracks and bonus tracks. Like,
Yes.
how lucky are we? Who else has done that in the music industry? No one. And I think as fans, like Taylor's fans in particular, they've almost become a little, I don't know, how do I wanna say this? Like, just not overindulgent, but kinda, where
Yeah. I
where
don't wanna
our,
say spoiled because I don't wanna be killed.
no, no, like, not s like, yeah, we're all spoiled to be getting all this content, but it's it's kind of been like we know all the re-recordings are coming out, and it was ever since that time, it's like we've just become so much more demanding and hungry for more. Um,
Yeah.
all this stuff, there's a lot of albums for her to re-record, and
Mhm.
we've already gotten a few of them back like, out, which is
With
amazing.
wanting to do new projects as well.
Yeah, yeah, and she's still doing new projects, like, at the time of this recording, we all know that Midnights is coming out on October 21st, which is
Mhm.
awesome.
Love that.
So, it's amazing, like, the girl is in the middle of re-releasing everything, and she comes out with a new album as a
Mhm.
surprise,
Love that for her.
and I know for a lot of people, they're just like, "Oh, it's been so long," but
Mhm.
if you think back to before, we went
Mhm.
years between getting a new album. Like,
Yeah.
getting an album plus every year, that's not normal, right?
No.
And
No, no, no.
and I feel it's just kinda creating this, like, "When is the next album coming out? When is the next album coming out?" But,
Mhm.
we are obviously enjoying the things that have come out already, but it's just
Mhm.
like we spend a week being like, "Oh, this is the best thing ever," and then we're like, "Okay, when's next? When's it like, is it coming? Is it out
Yeah.
yet?" Why is she being so silent?
Yeah,
Um
like, I remember back to when Red was re-released, which, I was vibing on that for, like, months and still
Mhm.
am really. And, like, it had a bit more of a release promo, like, she did quite a lot for
Yes.
it, but I remember, like, that week, they were, like, looking at the color of her dress one day and being like, "Oh, that makes means that Speak Now is next," and it's just like, Red came out 5 days ago.
Yeah.
And, there is part of me that I'm kind of the same way where I'm like, "Oh, I wonder which one is next and stuff." But I wonder if the obsession with Easter eggs and her has
Mhm.
almost caused this to get worse because she, especially with like social media being way more of a presence and all of this stuff, and her talking about it more, where she's like, like I've planted stuff like 3 years in advance.
Yeah.
Such it creates an obsession where, and I know like she's a very smart businesswoman. Pretty much everything she does can be considered an Easter egg for something in the future.
Mhm.
But it takes away from just the enjoyment of where she's currently at and what music we're listening to in the current era, because we're always trying to figure out what's next. And it's fun because it's like a puzzle
Yeah.
piece to figure out. But it's gotten to a point where it's like we're forgetting to just like enjoy what is currently there. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if when Midnights come out, the next week people are like, okay, but when's 1989?
Yeah, I agree with that for sure, like, just we need to just kinda slow down
Mm-hmm.
a little bit because, you know, she might post a picture and, yes, there's always something maybe hidden in it, but it's that over analyzation
Mm-hmm.
of it, and it just feels like sometimes we're rushing her,
Yeah,
and to Taylor as a creator, I wonder what that pressure is like,
exactly. And I
you know?
think that's kind of the thing, is what I've always loved about Taylor is how quality
Mhm.
everything she puts out is. Like, she takes the time and she like really puts her heart and soul into everything that she does, that I worry with this pressure of like, oh, you've only released one album this year. Why
Mhm.
can't you release another? Or like, when's the next one coming? It does create that pressure of just like, oh, well, now I have, like, I can imagine it creates the pressure of like, okay, now I have to go rush the production of this one. And, I think one thing we all need to keep in mind is Folklore and Evermore was the first time that she did that, where she released two in a year. Um, but just like everybody else, she was in lockdown
Yeah.
and really had nothing else to do. Like, she wasn't on tour.
Nope.
She wasn't going to be doing a Loverfest anymore, right? Because it had to be like it was postponed, and then later it was canceled. And even in 2021, it was still kind of iffy on like if Folklore and Evermore were going to have a tour, and because of the pandemic and stuff. So like she kind of had that time that she hasn't had before to like put out more music because she wasn't on tour. But
Right.
like now the world's kind of back to normal. She's releasing a new album in a couple months. Odds are she's going to be going on tour next year. Like things are kind of going to slow down again, I expect. Not slow down, but her focus is going to be in multiple different areas.
Yeah, exactly. Like, other things are going to take attention for her.
But I think we just need to appreciate all the gifts that she has given to us since the start of the pandemic, but also appreciate that, her genius, it takes time.
Yeah, and I think like for a lot of artists, this is what leads to burnout, right? Like they're trying
Mm-hmm.
to produce so much to keep fans happy. And it really makes me think of a quote that Taylor Swift in the Miss Americana
Mm-hmm.
documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the be new to us, be young to us, but only in a new way and only the way that we want.
Yeah.
Reinvent yourself, but only in a way that we find to be equally comforting and a challenge for you.
Mm-hmm.
Live out a narrative that we find interesting enough to entertain us, but not so crazy that it makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I feel like that really just encapsulates everything about fan culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, we need to give artists the space to live their lives and create what
Mm-hmm.
they want to create without putting all this pressure of just like, oh my God, what's next? What's next?
Yeah.
And I feel like that really was fast forwarded in recent years because before, we went years
Mm-hmm.
between an era
Yeah.
with Taylor.
Mm-hmm. I really think that just the rise of social media throughout her career has kind of brought us to this point. Because when she
Hmm.
first started out, like Instagram didn't exist.
No,
And then when Red was happening, like it kind of existed. And when 1989 was happening, it like existed a little bit more. And then Reputation came out, and it was a thing. But now, like it's in our hands 24/7 every single day, that it's like people are itching for news and information and such, where like we've talked about it before, like in the early 2000s, like content and stuff, it didn't come at that speed
no.
because it didn't have to. Our attention spans were longer
Yeah,
because
absolutely. And it kind of ties back to our first point that we were making of enjoying things for what they are
mhm,
because it's coming so fast, right? Like it's again this overconsumption and that need for more
yeah,
where we're not used to that as a human being.
mhm,
It's becoming like an addiction.
yeah. Like, let's like look at I don't know, 10 years ago when an album would come out, you'd get an album cover and the deluxe album cover. That
Hmm.
was it. Now you've got the album cover, the cassette tape cover, the 5 special editions for vinyls that people are buying one of each
Hmm.
and such. And it's just like, guys, let's all just chill and just enjoy the art.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to consume it in so many forms and expect so much of it on top of what we're already getting. Sometimes it feels like we're being a little greedy, and I am a victim of that as well.
Oh, for sure. Like I enjoy any piece of Taylor content that comes out. Like even today on Instagram, I think she announced that she was releasing special edition vinyls.
Mhm.
And of course, on Instagram, I saw her profile picture with a little circle around it, and I was like, "Oh my god, what's
Taylor.
coming out?" Of course, I clicked on it, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like this is just even a reminder for ourselves to be like, "Hey, you know what?
Mhm.
Stuff is going to come, right? It's going to come when it needs to come. Just enjoy everything that you have right now."
Well, that's an interesting way to look at it too. If we get a little woo woo, I don't know about you, but
Mhm.
in my recent years, it feels like every time Taylor released an album, it really worked for the phase of life or the experiences I was having. you know? It really worked with that time period, and it's the album I needed at that time. That pushing this, like, oh, you have to put out like 2 albums a year because we want it, I feel like will eventually reduce that magic,
Mhm.
because when you're working that hard and putting that much stuff out, like, your heart eventually is just not going to be in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about it, like every album that she has released has been an era in her life. And with the pressure of having to produce more and more and more to stay on top, it's almost
Hmm.
just like, okay, when do you have time to live your life, Taylor? We want to make sure
Yeah,
you're living your life so you can continue telling amazing stories.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So really, guys, we should all just give her some space.
Yes. She
Yes.
needs she needs to go live her life and then tell us all about it. And I was kind of having a little joke with myself the other day on midnights talking
Hmm.
about like the eras and how like she always writes content that's so relatable. I'm just
Hmm.
like, okay, Taylor, what crisis are we gonna have now? what will be making us cry?
It's like, what era in my life are you going to take me back to make me sob?
I know it's good therapy. You know, we're
What
having time to
what
go back
unresolved
and consider and resolve things.
what unresolved trauma do I have that you are going to bring out today?
Yes,
So, yeah.
yes. All right. Let's move into our final point, and it kind of this is where we get burned and
Oh, yeah.
unsubscribed from, and that is something that's a little bit related to I think everything we're talking about, and that is
Yes.
stan culture. Ooh.
Ooh.
So I feel like stan is everywhere on social media, especially in the recent months. And
Mhm.
really, what it is like an extremely and excessively enthusiastic and devoted fan. Which that is
Which is
great.
great.
That
That's
is
great.
great. But the problem is the origin of
Yes.
this. And I feel like I don't know if this is like a Gen Z thing or a younger person thing where stan to them is like super fan. But if you're like a millennial kid, you are very well aware of maybe a certain music video called Stan and it's by Eminem.
I'm
Um
not a Gen Z, I'm actually a millennial, but I've just watched that music video today for the first time. Thanks, Laura.
I'm sorry I wrecked it for you. So it's kind of funny, and I don't know, maybe I'm alone in this camp, but whenever I hear people talking about like, "Oh, I'm a stan," all I can think about is that music video. If
Yeah.
definitely go watch it if you haven't, because it's really the origin of it is stalker fan.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel sometimes that this is where all that kind of angst and pressure comes from is people are overly obsessed with a thing, a person, a show, a music, whatever you want. And yeah, we have to kind of step back a little bit from that. And I find it leads to like a lot of aggression, especially online,
Mhm.
where there's bays bees,
Yeah,
and it's just like if anyone has any commentary, probably this episode is going to be one of them.
probably.
You get all the bees out on the
Mhm.
comment, and it's just like the fan base will destroy things, like
Mhm.
anything that doesn't maybe agree with their viewpoints. And that's
Yeah.
that's kind of the thing, like everyone is allowed to have an opinion. And I've always kind of wondered about these really aggressive fan bases. I kind of wonder what the artist thinks of them, because when I think of Taylor
Yes.
Swift, like she's honestly like quoted as one of the nicest people ever,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Yet there are sometimes certain groups that get really aggressive
Yeah.
and opinionated on something that, like, not everyone likes Taylor Swift, and you know what? That's fine, because like we don't like everything.
Mhm.
There's lots of artists that I'm like, oh, I don't care for,
Mhm.
but it doesn't give us the reason to like attack them.
Yeah.
And Taylor being like such a kind human being, I sometimes wonder what she thinks of like when her fan base is like attacking someone.
Yeah. And I think kind of like springing off of this too is the jokes, especially on social media, that emerge in
Hmm.
these fandoms and with these stands, I guess, that it's a very public platform
Hmm.
that you're using, that, you know, I'm sorry, Taylor Swift. I am a Taylor Swift fan, but this was a very like annoying experience was when Red was re-released, and then the whole Jake Gyllenhaal conversation
Mhm.
starts up again. And, like, it kind of started as a joke
Yep.
amongst the fandom, but then, like, it got so much hype, and then, like, it got to the media, and the media was talking about it again, and then, like, people were attacking her ex-boyfriends over Instagram, and it's just like,
Like, I'm
"Guys,
pretty sure
like,
some of them
just
got death
chill
threats,
out."
right? Like,
They
yeah,
did,
and
and it's just like, "Come on, like, don't do that."
no, because the thing is, Taylor's not holding grudges about that. She's actually
No.
friends with a lot of her exes, and, it's like water under the bridge, right? And I know,
Mhm.
like, Jake Gyllenhaal's response, I'm paraphrasing, but it was just like his comment to the All Too Well and really the Red album was just like, this is an artist who's telling their experience of something,
Yeah.
right? Like, he didn't bite
Mhm.
on that, and I applaud him for
Same.
that. And I don't think Taylor as a person like wants her fan base attacking other people just for what she
Mhm.
stands for as a person.
Mhm.
It is trying to like move past and always be kind.
Yeah, and I think, just with all fan bases like this, it oftentimes can cause more harm to the artist than love.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's times where I look at a lot of fan bases like this where, like, these big, I'm going to use the word super fan because I
Mm-hmm.
kind of just, that's how I look at this in particular, where these super fans, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, you guys are kind of meaner to them than their haters are.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like unintentionally more harm is caused than good,
Mm-hmm.
with these fandom jokes and all of this stuff, where it's just like, guys, we just need to step back and remember, movies are one thing where they're fictional characters,
Yes.
right? Like, we can kind of say what we want. But when it's a music fandom and they are real people, we have to remember that they're real people. It's the same thing with a movie comes out, a actor who is really lovely plays a really horrible person.
Mm-hmm.
Hate the character, not the actor.
Yeah. No,
So,
I think you're exactly right.
hmm so yeah,
Yeah.
please
Well,
everybody, don't come at us.
well, and just kind of like as a final point, I think this is where, when the fandoms make such a big deal over a person or a situation,
Hmm.
to the general population that's maybe not on the know in the know of
Hmm.
what happened. I think that's where the stereotypes are put on
Yes.
to a certain artist. Like, and Taylor's a perfect example. In the media, there's a lot of generalizations about her,
Hmm.
and I think sometimes it's the fandoms that fuel that fire a
Hmm.
little bit. So,
Well, again, going back to Red, suddenly the debate of Taylor Swift just writes a song about her exes came back to the forefront because
mhm,
everybody was focusing on, oh, this was about Jake Gyllenhaal.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, like, I don't need, like, 10 years ago. It's a completely different energy now?
Yeah, like Taylor is not still hung up on Jake, guys. I don't think that's a problem for
No,
her.
I think she's okay. I think she's okay. So,
Yes. So anyway, if you're a big fan of something or someone, like, awesome. Just
mhm,
remember sometimes I think the energy that you were putting out. That's
yes.
kind of
And one
all.
thing,
Yep.
important caveat I want to make here, because, I was a boy band girl when I was growing up, and,
Hmm.
stan culture is very similar to boy band fangirling. Okay. If you really like somebody and they have some friends, or they're dating somebody and maybe you don't really like them or whatever, don't threaten them, you know?
No.
Like, that's their life.
Yeah.
Leave them alone,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And also, especially when somebody is like friends or dating somebody that, isn't really in the public eye, don't force them to be something that they're not, They are just that person's partner or friend. They are not now the possession of the public just because of that.
Yeah, and I think, like, just going off of that again, it's just like, artists and celebrities, yes, they might be in the public eye, but I think they also have a right to their privacy, and
Mhm.
and we need to respect that.
Yes, 100%.
So, anyway, we are now canceled. It's been a
We've
good
lost
run,
all of our
Rachel. We
listeners.
had a good time. Um, after this episode comes out, if we don't see any more, we got canceled.
Yeah.
And
We will
yeah.
not be promoting this episode on Reddit.
No. So if you found us through Reddit on particular fandom subreddits, it was nice knowing you. We hope you stick around. And
We have a couple more Taylor Swift episodes coming, so
we do.
can't
We
wait to
have more
see you
Taylor
there.
Swift coming. So don't worry. We are ready to record it, and we can't wait for Midnights to come out and we do our analysis episode. But
we're just promoting self-awareness.
Self-awareness, people. And we are not perfect over here. We always need to remind ourselves to keep ourselves in check here. So
exactly.
Anyway, that's all I have, Rachel.
Yeah, that's all I have too. I hope you guys will still stick with us after this and not leave sad reviews, because that would make us sad. But,
please no 1 stars. It hurts us.
If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and leave us a rating on Spotify. And if you have anything you want to talk to us about, you can email us at our email. It's teawithlaurarachele@gmail.com. If you want to tell us off, that's the place to do it.
Yep. Send us an email if you're mad. And with that, live like tea.
Live like tea.